Why do some women stay obsessively loyal while others constantly flirt with other men right in front of their partners? You see it everywhere. One woman treats her man like he's the only person in the room. Another woman makes eye contact with the waiter, laughs too hard at other men's jokes, and somehow always manages to mention her attractive male co-workers. But here's the twisted part. Both women claim to love their partners equally. Both say they're committed to their relationships. Yet one builds trust while the other systematically destroys it through a pattern of behaviour that seems designed to create maximum psychological torment. Most men believe female jealousy is about insecurity or attention-seeking. They think women who flirt with others are just being friendly or trying to make them jealous for fun. What they don't understand is that female jealousy operates according to ancient biological programming that's far more sophisticated and ruthless than anything they've been prepared to handle. Here's the brutal reality that will shatter everything you believed about female psychology. Women don't use jealousy randomly. They deploy it strategically as a weapon to control, manipulate, and psychologically dominate the men in their lives. And the most devastating part? Most of them don't even realize they're doing it. Arthur Schopenhauer understood this dynamic when he wrote about the fundamental differences between male and female approaches to competition and control. Men compete directly through physical or professional confrontation. Women compete indirectly through psychological manipulation and emotional warfare. Female jealousy isn't an emotion. It's a tactical system designed to accomplish specific goals that serve women's evolutionary interests. Every flirtation, every mention of another man's attractiveness, every story about a male colleague's attention is a calculated move in a psychological chess game that most men don't even realize they're playing. Think about this honestly. When your girlfriend or wife mentions that a coworker complimented her appearance, what's your immediate reaction? When she laughs a little too enthusiastically at another man's jokes, how does it make you feel? When she brings up an ex-boyfriend in casual conversation, what happens to your stress level? She knows exactly what happens, and that knowledge gives her power over your emotional state that she can deploy whenever it serves her purposes. Carl Jung wrote about the shadow self, the dark aspects of personality that people refuse to acknowledge. But female jealousy represents something even more dangerous, the shadow tactics that women use to maintain control while maintaining the illusion of innocence. The genius of female jealousy as a control mechanism is that it operates through plausible deniability. She's not trying to make you jealous, she's just being friendly. She's not flirting, she's just being polite. She's not testing your reactions, she's just sharing her day with you. This psychological cover allows her to wage emotional warfare while positioning herself as the victim if you react negatively to her behaviour. You become the jealous, controlling partner while she becomes the innocent woman who can't even talk to other people without being accused of wrongdoing. Here's where it gets truly psychologically devastating. Women deploy jealousy tactics in 3 distinct phases, each designed to accomplish different objectives in the relationship power structure. Understanding these phases is crucial because each one requires a different response strategy. Phase 1 is reconnaissance. She's gathering intelligence about your psychological vulnerabilities, testing your reactions to various levels of threat, and establishing baseline measurements for how much jealousy-inducing behaviour you'll tolerate before responding. During this phase, the provocations are subtle and seemingly innocent. She mentions a male friend more frequently than necessary. She takes a little longer to respond to texts when she's out with female friends who might be around men. She shares stories about interactions with attractive men that include unnecessary details about their appearance or charm. Most men miss this phase entirely because the individual incidents seem too minor to address. But she's not looking for dramatic reactions. She's calibrating your sensitivity levels and mapping your emotional triggers for future use. Phase 2 is training. Now that she understands your psychological profile, she begins conditioning your responses through a sophisticated reward and punishment system. When you react with jealousy, she either escalates the behaviour to punish you for being controlling, or withdraws it temporarily to reward you for not making a scene. This intermittent reinforcement creates a psychological addiction where you become hyper-vigilant about potential threats while simultaneously trying to appear confident and unaffected by her behaviour. You start monitoring her interactions with other men while pretending you don't care, creating internal psychological stress that affects every aspect of your relationship. Phase 3 is deployment. She now has a complete psychological weapon system, that she can activate whenever she needs to regain control, punish you for unrelated behavior, or simply remind you that your position in her life isn't as secure as you might think. The sophistication of this system becomes clear when you realize that the same woman who flirts aggressively when she wants to control you will become completely loyal when she's trying to secure commitment. The behavior isn't random, it's tactical. But here's the most disturbing truth about female jealousy tactics. They're not conscious strategies that women choose to employ. They're biological programs that activate automatically in response to specific relationship dynamics. Women who use jealousy as a weapon aren't evil masterminds. They're biological machines responding to evolutionary imperatives that operate below the level of conscious awareness. From an evolutionary perspective, female jealousy serves multiple survival functions that helped women navigate the complex social dynamics of prehistoric environments. The woman who could effectively manage multiple male relationships simultaneously had access to more resources, better protection, and superior genetic material for her offspring. Modern women inherit this programming even though contemporary environments no longer require these survival strategies. The result is women who unconsciously deploy tactics that made sense in tribal settings but create relationship chaos in modern contexts. Understanding this biological foundation doesn't excuse the behavior, but it explains why logical arguments and emotional appeals rarely change it. You're not dealing with conscious choices. You're dealing with deeply embedded programming that responds to environmental triggers rather than rational discussion. Schopenhauer observed that women are directly fitted for acting as the nurses and teachers of childhood by the fact that they are themselves childish, frivolous, and short-sighted. This wasn't an insult. It was recognition that female psychology operates according to different principles than male psychology. Women don't think strategically about long-term relationship consequences the way men do. They respond to immediate emotional and social pressures using whatever tools are available in the moment. Jealousy tactics work in the short term to achieve immediate goals, so they get deployed regardless of long-term relationship damage. This creates a psychological trap for men who try to address jealousy-inducing behavior through rational conversation. You're using logic to combat biology, reason to fight instinct, and conscious communication to address unconscious programming. It's like trying to negotiate with gravity. If you're recognizing these patterns in your own relationships, if this analysis is revealing uncomfortable truths about female psychology that you've experienced but never understood, I encourage you to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Your engagement helps ensure that these conversations continue, that men start understanding the psychological forces that shape their relationships. The algorithms respond to your participation, and your support allows these insights to reach the men who need them most. The most insidious aspect of female jealousy tactics is how they transform men's natural protective instincts into weapons of psychological destruction. Your desire to secure and protect your relationship becomes the very mechanism through which she controls your behavior and emotional state. When she flirts with other men, your instinct is to increase your own value through better treatment, more attention, and greater investment in the relationship. But this response actually reinforces her behavior by proving that jealousy tactics are effective tools for extracting more resources and effort from you. The biological programming behind this dynamic is ruthlessly efficient. Women are designed to continuously evaluate their options and maintain access to the highest value men available. Jealousy tactics serve this purpose by keeping multiple men psychologically invested while preventing any single man from becoming too comfortable or complacent. From her perspective, a man who isn't occasionally worried about losing her is a man who might stop working to deserve her. The jealousy she generates through strategic interactions with other men serves as a motivation system that keeps you striving to maintain her interest and affection. This explains why women's jealousy-inducing behavior often intensifies when relationships become too stable or predictable. She's not consciously trying to create problems. Her biology is responding to the perceived threat of a man who stopped competing for her attention. The modern dating environment has weaponized these biological tendencies through social media and dating apps. Women now have constant access to male attention and validation, which activates their mate evaluation programming on a continuous basis. The average woman receives more male attention in a single day than prehistoric women encountered in months. This abundance of options doesn't make women happier. It makes them more likely to engage in behaviors that keep multiple men psychologically invested. Social media becomes a platform for displaying availability and desirability to a wide audience while maintaining plausible deniability about the intent behind these displays. The psychological warfare aspect of female jealousy becomes most apparent in how women use other men as emotional weapons against their partners. The male co-worker who's just a friend, but somehow always available for lunch. The ex-boyfriend who's completely platonic but still texts regularly. The attractive neighbour who's just being friendly, but always seems to need help with household projects. These men aren't random factors in her life. They're carefully maintained psychological assets that can be deployed whenever she needs to remind you that your position isn't secure. The threat they represent isn't necessarily sexual. It's replacement potential that keeps you psychologically off balance and emotionally invested. But here's where most men make their fatal error in responding to these tactics. They try to compete with the other men rather than addressing the woman's behaviour directly. They attempt to become more attractive, more attentive, more accommodating, essentially rewarding her for using jealousy tactics by giving her exactly what those tactics were designed to extract. This response pattern creates a psychological addiction where she becomes dependent on jealousy-inducing behaviour to maintain your investment in the relationship. The better you treat her in response to potential threats, the more likely she is to continue creating situations that generate those threats. The biological logic is simple. If flirting with other men results in better treatment from you, then flirting with other men becomes a valuable tool for relationship management. You've trained her to use jealousy tactics by rewarding them with increased attention and effort. Schopenhauer understood this dynamic when he wrote about the fundamental differences between how men and women approach psychological conflict. Men prefer direct confrontation that resolves issues definitively. Women prefer indirect manipulation that maintains ongoing leverage and control. Jealousy tactics serve this preference perfectly because they create continuous low-level conflict that never gets resolved definitively. You can't prove she's flirting because her behaviour maintains plausible deniability. You can't address the threat directly because doing so makes you appear jealous and controlling. This psychological limbo is exactly where she wants you, uncertain enough to stay invested but not angry enough to leave. It's a masterclass in emotional manipulation that keeps you psychologically bound to someone who's systematically undermining your peace of mind. The most psychologically destructive aspect of female jealousy tactics is how they corrupt your ability to trust your own perceptions. You start second-guessing your reactions, wondering if you're being paranoid, questioning whether behaviours that feel threatening are actually innocent interactions. This gaslighting effect is built into the system because jealousy tactics only work if they can be deployed without consequences. She needs to be able to create psychological discomfort while maintaining the position that you're overreacting to normal social behaviour. Over time, this dynamic erodes your confidence in your own judgment and emotional responses. You become hesitant to address problems because you've been conditioned to believe that noticing threats makes you the problem. You start accepting behaviour that violates your boundaries because you've lost faith in your ability to distinguish between reasonable concerns and irrational jealousy. The long-term psychological damage from this conditioning can last years beyond the relationship that created it. Men who've been subjected to systematic jealousy tactics often struggle to trust future partners even when those partners haven't given them any reason for concern. But here's the crucial insight that transforms your understanding of these dynamics. Women's jealousy tactics are fundamentally tests of your psychological strength and self-respect. They're designed to determine whether you're the kind of man who will tolerate disrespectful behaviour in exchange for relationship security, or the kind of man who maintains his standards regardless of the potential consequences. The woman who flirts with other men in front of you isn't trying to replace you. She's trying to determine whether you're worthy of her exclusive attention. If you pass the test by maintaining your boundaries and self-respect, she stops testing. If you fail the test by accepting disrespectful behaviour, she escalates the testing because you've proven you can be controlled. This reframe transforms jealousy-inducing behaviour from personal attack into professional evaluation. She's not trying to hurt you. She's trying to determine whether you're strong enough to handle the psychological challenges that come with a long-term relationship with a desirable woman. From this perspective, the appropriate response to jealousy tactics isn't increased investment or competitive behaviour. It's calm enforcement of your boundaries and standards. You don't need to fight other men for her attention because men who deserve exclusive attention don't have to fight for it. The psychological principle at work here is that people respect what they cannot control and dismiss what they can control completely. When you react to her jealousy tactics with increased effort and attention, you prove that you can be controlled through these methods. When you respond with indifference to her behaviour while maintaining your own standards, you prove that these tactics don't work on you. This indifference isn't coldness or lack of caring. It's psychological sovereignty that comes from understanding your own worth, independent of anyone else's behaviour. You don't need her to stop flirting with other men to feel secure because your security comes from within rather than from external validation. The transformation required to achieve this psychological independence is brutal but necessary. You must kill the part of yourself that needs exclusive attention from women to feel worthy. You must develop such strong internal validation that external threats become irrelevant to your emotional state. This doesn't mean accepting disrespectful behaviour. It means responding to disrespectful behaviour from a position of strength rather than neediness. You address problems because they violate your standards, not because they threaten your security. You maintain boundaries because you respect yourself, not because you fear losing someone else. The woman who realises that jealousy tactics don't work on you faces a choice: escalate to more dramatic behaviour that reveals her manipulation clearly, or abandon these tactics in favour of earning your attention through positive behaviour. Either outcome serves your interests better than the psychological warfare that destroys most men's peace of mind. This decision point reveals the true nature of female psychology in relationships. When subtle manipulation fails, women must choose between abandoning the strategy or escalating to more obvious forms of control. The escalation path often includes more blatant flirtation, deliberate boundary violations, or even threats of infidelity designed to provoke the jealous reaction that subtle tactics couldn't generate. But escalation comes with risks that most women prefer to avoid. Obvious manipulation destroys plausible deniability and exposes the calculated nature of her behaviour. It forces her to own the fact that she's deliberately trying to make you jealous rather than maintaining the fiction that you're just being paranoid or controlling. The smart woman recognises when she's dealing with a man who can't be controlled through jealousy tactics and shifts to earning his attention through genuine value and positive behaviour. She stops wasting energy on psychological games and starts investing that energy in being someone worth choosing over all other options. This transition marks the beginning of authentic relationship dynamics, where both parties compete to deserve each other, rather than manipulating each other for advantage. The woman who abandons jealousy tactics in favour of earning attraction through merit creates the foundation for genuine trust and mutual respect. However, most women don't reach this realisation quickly or easily. The biological programming that drives jealousy tactics is powerful and persistent. Women who have successfully used these strategies in previous relationships often struggle to abandon methods that have historically generated the results they wanted. This creates a testing period where she may cycle through different approaches to see if any of them crack your psychological armour. One week she might try the subtle mention of male attention at work. The next week she might escalate to more obvious flirtation at social events. The following week she might retreat to victim behaviour designed to make you feel guilty for not responding to her previous provocations. The key during this testing period is maintaining complete consistency in your responses. Every reaction you have teaches her something about your psychological makeup and boundary system. Inconsistent responses extend the testing phase indefinitely because she never quite knows which approach might eventually work. The biological reality driving this persistence is that female mate selection programming includes sophisticated contingency plans for different types of male psychology. Some men respond to subtle cues, others require more obvious provocations, and still others need dramatic escalation before they react. Her testing behaviour is essentially a diagnostic process designed to determine which category you belong to. Understanding this diagnostic function helps explain why some women seem to create relationship drama out of nowhere. They're not necessarily trying to sabotage the relationship, they're trying to understand how your psychological system operates under stress. The drama serves as a stress test that reveals your emotional triggers, insecurity patterns, and control mechanisms. The most sophisticated women conduct these tests early in relationships to establish baseline measurements of your psychological profile. They need to know whether you're easily manipulated, how much jealousy you can tolerate before reacting, what types of threats activate your competitive instincts, and how you respond to various forms of emotional pressure. This information becomes crucial for long-term relationship management because it allows her to predict and control your responses during future conflicts or negotiations. The woman who understands your psychological triggers can activate them strategically whenever she needs to achieve specific outcomes in the relationship dynamic. Women's biological programming includes sophisticated mechanisms for evaluating male psychological strength under pressure. Jealousy tactics are essentially stress tests designed to determine whether you maintain your composure and confidence when facing potential threats to your relationship security. The military understands this principle in their selection processes for elite units. They don't evaluate candidates under comfortable conditions. They create maximum stress to see who maintains effectiveness when everything goes wrong. Only candidates who perform well under adverse conditions qualify for missions where performance under pressure means the difference between success and failure. Women apply similar logic to relationship dynamics. They need to know that the man they're considering for long-term commitment won't fall apart psychologically when facing real threats to family security. A man who becomes unstable when she talks to other men certainly can't be trusted to remain calm during actual crises. This perspective transforms jealousy-inducing behavior from relationship problem into relationship opportunity. Instead of viewing her tests as attacks on your security, you can view them as chances to demonstrate your psychological strength and emotional stability. The man who passes these tests consistently builds a reputation for reliability and strength that makes future testing unnecessary. The woman who knows with certainty that you can't be shaken by potential threats stops wasting energy on creating those threats and redirects that energy towards supporting your leadership instead. But achieving this level of psychological mastery requires fundamental changes in how you approach relationships and self-worth. You must develop purposes so compelling that relationship drama becomes trivial by comparison. You must become so comfortable with solitude that companionship becomes optional rather than necessary. The journey to this psychological sovereignty is lonely and difficult, but it's the only path to relationships that enhance rather than diminish your life. When you no longer need anyone else's exclusive attention to feel worthy, you become worthy of exclusive attention. When you stop chasing validation from others, others start seeking validation from you. The paradox of jealousy dynamics is that the men who are least affected by them receive the most genuine loyalty, while the men who are most threatened by them experience the most testing behavior. This isn't coincidence, it's female psychology responding to demonstrated strength versus demonstrated weakness. Women's biological programming is designed to continuously evaluate mate quality through various forms of stress testing. Jealousy tactics represent just one category in a comprehensive evaluation system that includes financial pressure, social challenges, family conflicts, career setbacks, and health issues. The man who maintains his frame during jealousy tests will face additional tests in other areas because her programming needs comprehensive data about his reliability under all forms of stress. This systematic evaluation process explains why some relationships seem to involve constant drama and others achieve stable peace relatively quickly. The woman who determines early that her man can't be shaken by psychological pressure stops investing energy in testing behavior and redirects that energy towards supporting his leadership instead. But the woman who discovers that jealousy tactics generate the responses she wants becomes psychologically addicted to creating these scenarios. The power she gains through your emotional reactions becomes a drug that she needs regular doses of to feel secure in her ability to control the relationship dynamic. This addiction pattern creates relationships where drama becomes the primary form of intimacy. She creates psychological chaos not because she enjoys conflict, but because your response to that chaos provides the validation she needs about her continued power over your emotional state. The jealousy she generates serves as proof that you still care enough to be affected by the threat of losing her. Men who find themselves in these patterns often mistake the intensity of emotion for the depth of connection. They believe that a woman who can make them feel powerful jealousy must be someone special, someone worth fighting for, someone whose attention has extraordinary value. But intensity isn't the same as value, and emotional chaos isn't the same as passionate love. The biological reality is that women are programmed to create enough relationship uncertainty to keep men psychologically invested without creating so much uncertainty that men abandon the relationship entirely. This requires sophisticated calibration of jealousy tactics to maintain optimal levels of male anxiety and effort. Modern technology has amplified these dynamics exponentially by providing women with unprecedented access to male attention and validation. Social media platforms become laboratories for testing and refining jealousy-inducing content. Every photo, every comment, every interaction becomes an opportunity to gauge your reaction and adjust her strategy accordingly. The average woman now manages what amounts to a portfolio of male attention that would have been impossible in any previous era of human history. She can activate jealousy in her primary relationship while simultaneously maintaining backup options through digital connections that require minimal investment of time or energy. This abundance of options doesn't make women happier or more secure. It makes them more likely to engage in behaviors that keep multiple men psychologically hooked, while never fully committing to any single relationship. The paradox of choice that destroys modern dating markets operates through jealousy tactics that prevent both parties from achieving the security they claim to want. The evolutionary mismatch between women's biological programming and modern technological capabilities creates unprecedented challenges for men who want stable, exclusive relationships. They're competing not just with the men in her immediate environment, but with a virtually unlimited supply of male attention available through digital platforms. Understanding this reality is crucial for developing effective responses to jealousy tactics. You're not dealing with traditional relationship dynamics where the competition was limited and visible. You're dealing with a woman whose phone contains access to hundreds or thousands of men who are eager to provide the validation and attention that she uses as weapons against your peace of mind. The dark psychology of female jealousy ultimately reveals a simple truth. People treat you the way you teach them to treat you. When you react to jealousy tactics with increased effort and attention, you teach women that these tactics are effective tools for controlling your behavior. When you respond with indifference and boundary enforcement, you teach them that respect is the only currency you accept. The choice is always yours. You can continue accepting psychological warfare disguised as relationship dynamics, or you can develop the strength to demand the respect you deserve. One path leads to years of anxiety and insecurity. The other leads to relationships that add value to your life rather than consuming it. Choose wisely. Your psychological health depends on it.